Fire Eyes Media.
On June 8, 2017, a frantic call to 911 from a heartbroken wife claimed that her husband was found lying face down in a pool of blood at his at-home business.
Ben Renick, a rock star in the reptile community, was found dead in his snake breeding facility that housed over 3,000 snakes in New Florence, Missouri.
Immediately, it was assumed that one of his prized snakes had been responsible for taking his life. However, the coroner would make a discovery that turned the entire investigation upside down.
I'm Gina.
And I'm Amber. And today we're remembering the life and tragic demise of Ben Renick, husband, father, and the man responsible for Renick Reptiles.
Lynlee Renick discovered her husband's body and called Ben's brother, Sam, immediately upon finding him. Sam raced over and told her to call 911. When Sam arrived, he had reached the most logical conclusion considering where he had been found.
One of the snakes that Ben had been caring for and raising must have attacked and taken Ben's life. Sam noted to 911 that it appeared that Ben's skull had been crushed.
For those that aren't familiar with snakes, ball pythons, which were some of the main breeding projects Ben had, don't typically get large enough to inflict fatal damage to a grown human male.
Ben also had reticulated pythons and anacondas at his facility. Now, these snakes can get somewhat large. Reticulated pythons can reach lengths of 10 to 20 feet long and several hundred pounds, the longest ever recorded being 32 feet.
Anacondas, a snake many people are familiar with due to pop culture movies, specifically green anacondas, are one of the largest snakes in the world, reaching up to 30 feet long and weighing over 550 pounds.
While it is rare, there have been documented cases of reticulated pythons killing humans, particularly in Indonesia in remote areas. Anacondas, on the other hand, there are no recorded deaths of humans and only rare attacks.
Yeah, humans are not typical prey for these creatures. They are also not venomous snakes, meaning they don't have the capability to inject venom to incapacitate and/or kill their prey.
Renick Reptiles specialized in the selective breeding of designer pythons that Ben started in 2010. He sold his snakes to buyers all over the world, from the UK to Japan.
A friend of Ben said Ben was a successful snake breeder. He was kind of a pioneer in that whole industry. He was definitely very well known in the snake breeding community, like, I would say worldwide.
So finding Ben dead in his snake farm came as a major shock to friends, family, and the reptile community. No one thought that anyone would hurt Ben, so it had to have been one of his snakes.
When the police arrived, they began to prepare themselves to search the snake farm to locate the snake responsible, and as Montgomery County Coroner Dave Colbert examined Ben's body, he made a chilling discovery. Ben wasn't the victim of one of his snakes. He had been shot a total of 8 times at close range and likely died within 2 hours of Lynlee's call to 911.
After the coroner's discovery, their investigation shifted focus from the reptiles in the building to looking for the human suspect. They tested Lynlee for gun residue, and the results came back negative.
Lynlee claimed that she had been at her business, Essentia Spa, located in Columbia, Missouri, when she received a call that her children had not been picked up. She told police that after she picked up her children, she went to the snake facility to locate Ben to find out why he didn't pick them up. And at 6:36 p.m., she placed the call to 911.
The police said that Lynlee had been very forthcoming during her interrogation, but she quickly shifted the focus from her to Sam, Ben's brother. She told the investigators that Ben had possibly been planning to sell the family property where they all lived, and allegedly, Sam was upset about that.
Sam wasn't aware that Lynlee had implicated him in any way, and he wondered if Ben had been killed in an act of revenge against their father, Frank Renick. Frank had been the owner of Spectrum Pet Care in Montgomery City. He had been indicted in 2012 in a federal fraud case that's dated between 2006 and May of 2011. Frank sold more than $7 million in stocks, bonds, and promissory notes in Spectrum Pet Care to more than 250 investors in Missouri and other states.
He had told the investors that the money would be used to purchase equipment and to fund operations at the business, but substantial portions were used to repay existing investors and for his own personal expenses. This meant a lot of people lost a lot of money due to his Ponzi scheme. He was found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound on June 17, 2012.
This theory never took off, though, and Sam tested negative for gunshot residue, and after fully cooperating with investigators, he was ruled out. The reptile community stepped up and rallied around Lynlee and the kids and helped raise more than $40,000. Dave Kaufman, a fellow reptile enthusiast, said they had raised tens of thousands of dollars to help them because they all felt the stinging loss of Ben and Lynlee, and the kids were victims as well.
Just 11 days after Ben's murder, Lynlee was brought in for questioning again. This time, she confessed to having an affair with a man named Eric, claiming they had hooked up once or twice a month. It was apparent that below the surface, Ben and Lynlee's marriage wasn't all sunshine and rainbows.
Lynlee and Ben had actually known each other since they were teenagers and had parted ways only to reconnect again in 2011. They got married on April 13, 2014, and ended up having a child together while Ben helped raise Lynlee's son from a previous marriage. Lynlee and her son moved in with Ben into a home he had built on his family's farm.
She helped out Ben in the snake farm with the caring of all the snakes and eventually, as we said, opened up her own spa, Essentia Spa, in 2016. According to the Yelp business page, she had been a licensed massage therapist for over 9 years and some other mumbo-jumbo about wanting her clients to leave the spa feeling the best versions of themselves, happy and healthy, blah, blah, blah.
The police followed up with Eric, checked out his alibi, and tested him for gunshot residue, clearing him of any suspicion. The police then interviewed Ashley Shaw, the spa's bookkeeper and friend of Lynlee. Ashley let the police know that Lynlee had also been seeing another man by the name of Brandon Blackwell, who she had met on the dating website Ashley Madison. She had even been hooking up with Brandon before Ben's murder. We'll definitely be hearing more from Ashley and Brandon later on.
Investigators discovered Facebook messages between Ben and Lynlee where they were arguing about finances and Lynlee's mismanagement of her spa business. She was behind in her loan, rent, and staff payments, and her business had been throwing off the entire financial stability of the family, despite Ben's success in Renick reptiles. From the messages between them, it also appeared that Ben had been suspicious about Lynlee and her cheating, but had no proof at the time. As a matter of fact, just hours before Ben was murdered, it was discovered that Ben had sent Lynlee a message on Facebook saying, "No more lying, no more keeping things from me, no more not paying people and thinking it's okay to pay later."
4 months later, Lynlee was brought in for questioning again on October 5th, 2017, this time to take a polygraph test. She even told investigators she thought she did well on the exam, which in reality wasn't the case.
The results showed that she failed, specifically when the question, "Did you shoot that man?" was asked. The police suspected Lynlee had something to do with Ben's death and that she may have had help from yet another man in her life, but lacked hard evidence to prove it.
Enter a man named Michael Humphrey, an old ex-boyfriend and ex-con, fresh out of prison on drug possession charges. She had texted and called him numerous times leading up to Ben's death, including on the day Ben was murdered.
During one interrogation, the investigator actually told Lynlee, quote, "There is so much circumstantial evidence against you in this case, it's mind-boggling," end quote. Since her gunshot residue test came back negative, there were no witnesses, no murder weapon, or any direct evidence linking her to Ben's murder. She left the interrogation room a free woman. Again. She had been interrogated a total of 6 times.
Dave Kaufman said that he and others in the reptile community would contact each other feeling ill at ease with a murderer still on the loose, asking if anybody had any information on what was going on. He said that humans do things other than what you expect. Snakes do not.
And that is 100% accurate.
The investigation went cold for nearly 3 years. As time passed, Sam said that when Lynlee refused to talk to them, or allow the kids, or even receive Ben's belongings, they knew something was wrong.
Just weeks after Ben's murder, Lynlee had sold the family property, closed up shop, and left town. Only mere days after his death, Lynlee was on the phone to the insurance company asking how she could claim on Ben's $1 million life insurance policy.
A jailhouse tip came through to the Missouri State Highway Patrol on January 14th, 2020. They followed up on it and met with Brandon Blackwell, who we mentioned earlier had dated Lynlee. Brandon's dad reached out to the investigators and informed them that Brandon wanted to speak with them.
Brandon had been the man that Lynlee met online and was even hooking up with the very week Ben was murdered. Only a year after Ben was killed, Brandon and Lynlee had a child together. Lynlee alleged that Brandon had become threatening and they had broken up.
Lynlee got an order of protection in 2019, and Brandon had been charged with violating that order and stalking her, which he denied doing. The stalking and related charges would later be dropped. After being arrested in January 2020 for the violation of their protection order, Brandon was looking for a way out of jail, so he reached out to the investigators. Brandon informed them of a plan hatched by Lynlee to give Ben a narcotic-laced protein shake. She had enlisted the help of her friend and bookkeeper Ashley Shaw to help poison Ben with Percocet. She allegedly put 15 Percocet into a protein shake and gave it to Ben.
Ben was understandably poisoned after consuming that many. But despite being very, very sick, he miraculously survived, completely unaware that someone he lived with and loved had tried to kill him.
Brandon said that after this plan failed, Lynlee turned to Michael Humphrey. He told the investigators that Michael and Lynlee drove out to the farm. He had gloves, he had the firearm, and the plan was for him to do it.
When they got there, he hands Lynlee the gun and says that he doesn't feel comfortable doing it and it's just something she's got to take care of. She walks in with a gun and just shoots him. Brandon also said that Ashley Shaw was in on it from the beginning.
On January 16th, 2020, Lynlee Renick and Michael Humphrey were arrested and charged with the murder of Ben Renick. Ben's family and friends never saw this coming. They were shocked, but Sam said that between the life insurance, the sales of the snakes, and the family farm, Lynlee stood to gain millions.
The police turned to Ashley Shaw and arrested her, making sure to immediately let her know what her future might look like. The investigator told her, quote, "Now is the time. You're either on Team Lynlee or Team Missouri. And Team Lynlee is going to jail. They're going to prison for first-degree murder." End quote.
So, in exchange for leniency, Ashley turned on Lynlee, starting with the protein shake. According to Ashley, after the shooting, Lynlee claimed that Michael Humphrey was the trigger man. But a few days later, Lynlee changed her story.
Lynlee told Ashley she had been the killer. In the interrogation, Ashley said, quote, and she said, "Oh, no, once we got there, I was fine to do it. And so he handed me the gun and I did it." End quote. When the investigator asked if after the murder, Lynlee ever seemed remorseful, and Ashley said, "Never. No."
Michael Humphrey's trial started on October 20th, 2021. The defense team argued that Michael had been lured to the snake farm by Lynlee, who claimed she wanted protection when asking Ben for a divorce. Lynlee had then surprised him and pulled out a gun and shot her husband. And remember, the murder weapon hadn't been recovered.
The jury watched an interview Michael did with the Missouri State Highway Patrol on the day of his 2020 arrest, where he claimed that he had no knowledge of Lynlee's plan to kill her husband when they drove to the farm that day.
The prosecution said that he drove her to the property from the spa the day Ben was murdered, after meeting with Ashley Shaw, who was in on the entire plot, and that he gave Lynlee the gun to use. They also asked him why he continued the interaction with Lynlee after she tried handing him the gun.
Now, the defense focused on Lynlee and Ashley Shaw's role in the event, stating that the two of them came up with the details of the plan and left Michael Humphrey out of most of it. The fact that they were focusing on Ashley's recount of events after the prosecution offered her a deal to avoid charges was a definite point of criticism. Ashley Shaw was the prosecution's star witness.
The jury didn't buy Humphrey's whole innocent bystander spiel. So after deliberating for about 5 hours, they returned their verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. This was actually later reduced to second-degree murder after he agreed to testify and assist the prosecution.
When Michael was convicted in December 2021 and facing life behind bars, he changed his story. As Gina said, he agreed to cooperate with the state in the hopes that he might be able to parole out eventually.
He admitted that he provided the gun to Lynlee and that the police could find the murder weapon stashed in his girlfriend's mother's attic. Lynlee's trial began in December of 2021.
The prosecution painted Lynlee as cold-blooded as one of Ben's snakes, a killer who shot Ben and then went about her daily routine life as if nothing had happened. The defense countered that by saying, while Lynlee lied and cheated on Ben, that doesn't mean she was a killer. So they pointed the finger at the man who had already been convicted of his murder, Michael Humphrey.
They even claimed that Ashley Shaw had made up her entire testimony to avoid life in prison, just like Michael Humphrey. In a move that doesn't happen frequently in murder trials, Lynlee testified herself. She claimed that her marriage with Ben had become troubled and sometimes violent, recounting a time where an argument with Ben had turned physical.
She never filed any police reports about the alleged physical abuse either. And Sam, on the other hand, Ben's brother, said that abusive was not a word he'd ever associate with Ben, saying his brother was very kind, very loving.
Lynlee explained that she asked Michael to accompany her so she could just get some stuff and go, and that she did not ask him to help her kill Ben. She claims that she walked up behind Michael, he turned around, she saw a gun in his hands, and then she heard shots ring out.
She says she screamed and ran outside and heard more shots go off, and everything went numb for her. Michael ran out and pushed her toward the car, saying they had to go. She said she was initially in shock and didn't tell the investigators the truth. Initially, but that also didn't equal murder.
She repeatedly didn't tell the investigators the truth. She was interviewed several times, lied to them each time, all the while knowing who was responsible for Ben's death, and even had the gall to point the finger at Sam herself.
According to court documents, Lynlee said that Michael arrived at the spa around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Ashley didn't actually see Michael there, but she saw a vehicle she had previously seen Michael sitting in when Lynlee and her first contacted him.
Lynlee left her phone at the spa before she left with Michael, and they stopped to get gas. Ashley was left at the spa alone with another employee who went to the bank and a convenience store, so they were caught on camera and had alibis. Ashley said that after an hour and a half to 2 hours later, Lynlee returned to the spa to shower.
Well, on December 9th, 2021, after about 12 hours of deliberation from the jury, the judge revealed the verdict. Guilty of murder in the second degree and guilty of armed criminal action. Life was an option, but instead, the jury settled on 13 years for murder and 3 for armed criminal action. Yeah, just a total of 16 years.
Michael Humphrey appealed his conviction and life sentence on August 1st, 2023, but it was ultimately denied as he had waived his rights to a direct appeal in exchange for a reduction of the charge and sentence that included the possibility of parole. Lynlee filed an appeal in October of 2022, but it was dropped without explanation in January of 2023.
Today, Michael Humphrey is serving his sentence at Jefferson County Correction Center, and according to an online search, Lynlee Renick is serving her time at the Women's Eastern Reception, Diagnostic, and Correctional Center. She could possibly be released in 2038 at the age of 49.
16 years doesn't seem like a lot, and Sam later said, "We were happy that she was sentenced to the 16 years she was given. However, my brother's life was worth a lot more than 16 years. Those children, all the lives that were destroyed by these actions."
The judge also shared Sam's and my frustration at the light sentence. But under Missouri law, he could not increase Lynlee's punishment, and jurors never said why they chose such a seemingly light sentence. Judge Crane said, quote, "You're awfully lucky, ma'am. You're going to get out in your 40s, and my 40s weren't too bad. I just hope you don't kill again. That's it." End quote.
At the end of it all, there were 2 convicted killers, and Ashley Shaw, who was granted immunity after plotting with Lynlee twice. Ben's legacy lives on through his children, Sam, and a new breed of snake named just for him. Dave Kaufman said, "The Renick ghost." And what a ghost is a slight reduction of black's color. It gives the snake a ghostly appearance to it. And that is such a testament to what Ben meant to this community, that he now has a mutation of snake named after him.
We'll leave you with this excerpt Ben wrote on World of Ball Pythons. "I have always had a fascination with wildlife, which began at a very early age. I spent a lot of time going on hikes and collecting various insects, snakes, and lizards. By doing that, of course, sparked my interest more and more in reptiles. So my parents took me to a local pet shop where I ended up with my very first snake, a yellow rat snake. Over time, I accumulated a few more king snakes and milk snakes as well. But then I got my very first ball python, and it was all over from there. I was hooked. Over the years, I got to handle a variety of different snakes from different pet shops and friends, which got me more and more interested in the keeping and breeding of different boas and pythons. Every snake that is in my care is looked after daily and taken care of to the full extent, and I'm very happy I can work with such amazing and marvelous creatures.
This is so sad. It's hard to imagine someone who could care so deeply for animals would have any sort of mean bone in his body towards another person.
And it all goes back to the very beginning for me. It's a testament to Ben that even though he had ball pythons and the reticulated pythons and anacondas that he had been working with for so long, their immediate thought was one of the snakes had to have gotten to him because there was no possible way anybody would have wanted to hurt him.
Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm trying to figure out, like, maybe the answer is obvious, but like, what was her motive here? Like, she obviously wasn't happy, and he was worth a lot of money, and she was not good at handling the financial situation of her life. So maybe she's like, well, I take him out and I get all this insurance money. It's going to solve my problems. But she obviously wasn't happy in the marriage if she was having multiple affairs.
Yeah.
And it's hard because we only know one side of the story. I want to believe that he was not abusive and that was not true, but it's hard when you don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
my instinct says no.
Absolutely. Like, I'm somebody that is that caring for, like, as you said, somebody that is that caring for animals. It's hard to imagine that they can be that caring, especially towards an animal that most people perceive as, oh God, no, he's so caring towards these. How could he possibly be anything but that in his personal life towards the people that he cares about and loves the most? It's hard to fathom that.
It is. And also in this Nova advocacy training that I've been taking, there have been courses about the link between people who abuse animals and abuse people. And how it normally starts with animal abuse, and then it works its way up to being violent against other people.
Exactly. When you hear of somebody, kicking dogs and killing cats and stuff, like, okay, that is a lot more believable that they're capable of inflicting harm on another human being. But somebody that cares so deeply about snakes, reptiles, like, they're not, like, most people are not a fan.
No.
It's not your cuddly cat or your loyal, faithful, lovable dog. It's completely, but he still showed that level of care and compassion towards them.
Yeah, it's gross that she only got that much time, and I don't understand. The
only thing is that possibly the jury was convinced there was possibly a possibility that Ben had been abusive towards her. And it's hard not to feel sympathy towards women in that situation.
Of course. If that is the case, it does.
So I can, that's the only thing. But at the end of the day, she still took somebody's life. And there was no at
proof.
Any point, there was no time where she said it was self-defense, that she did it because she was scared for her life, because of anything. No. She was there to, quote, quote, ask him for a divorce and get some of her stuff. So, and anything else, she never said it was self-defense. It was cold-blooded. So a cold-blooded murder only gets 16 years.
Not to mention that was the second time she
tried to kill him. Yeah.
And what was the bookkeeper in for? Like, why was she so supportive of this? Like, her friend from the spa? Like,
because she had been telling Ashley that Ben was abusive and controlling, and she was, getting her on her side.
Then get divorced. To get a divorce.
It's so hard to not slightly judge and be a little biased. Those situations are hard. If you are in a situation like that, it's easier said than done to just get a divorce. But
we know that's not the case.
She never filed a police report. There were no records. There was no evidence. And, we mentioned the family farm. So the family farm that they lived on was Ben and Sam's parents' farm. Their dad, committed suicide, and their mom had passed away. She got sick. And so Ben had a house on the farm, and Sam actually had a house on the property as well. So they all lived right there together, like not necessarily like on top of each other, but they were there. So if there was some sort of physical abuse or anything, they're not isolated. Somebody would have seen something.
Somebody would have seen the signs.
Exactly. And that's my 2 cents about it.
Yeah, it's hard. It's like it's a delicate topic because you can't just sit there and say it didn't happen, because there are plenty of circumstances where women are in that situation and they're not going to file charges or call because the likelihood of that making the situation worse is also very high.
Right.
So but also, like you said, it's not like she shot him in a moment of self-defense or in the middle of an altercation. She chose to go to that shop and shoot him point blank. Exactly. If you like what you heard today or want to give your opinions on how you feel about this episode, reach out to us, DM us on Instagram at Weird True Crime, email us at weirdtruecrime@gmail.com. However you want to contact us, we'd love to hear from you. And please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and review so we can continue giving voices to the victims and sharing their legacies. Like I said, go see us on Instagram, follow us there, send us an email, all the things.
This case did hit home for me because I'm a reptile lover myself and have 5 ball pythons of my own. I watched some of Ben's, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this out.
Take a moment.
I actually watched some of Ben's YouTube videos of his facility. Renick Reptiles has their own YouTube channel, and they were just, short introductions to some of the snakes he was hatching out and some instructional videos, and he was showing off the facility. You could just tell that breeding these snakes and raising them and caring for them, it just wasn't some flippant hobby. He was really, truly passionate about it and cared about what he did. Snakes aren't the scary creatures that we're led to believe. I used to be terrified of them myself, and Ben was doing all he could to bring out the best of his snakes to let the world see as well. So, yeah, let us know what you think about Ben's story. We really would love to hear from you.
And until next time, stay safe.
And make good choices. Bye.
Bye.